Greetings, everybody. I'm Larry Williams, the Director of CARMA, the Consortium for the Advancement of Research Methods and Analysis, now in the Rawls College of Business at Texas Tech University. It is September 24th, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to another version of CARMA Quick Chat. As you may know, the CARMA Quick Chat is where I take the opportunity to engage in conversation with somebody who's contributing to CARMA, typically in the form of a CARMA webcast presenter. And today it's just a treat to be able to have this chat with Mike Pratt. Mike is the O'Connor Family Professor of Management in the Carroll School of Management at Boston College. I can't take the time to give all of his accomplishments the due that they deserve, but quickly, he was the inaugural qualitative editor at Academy of Management Journal. He's an outgoing associate editor at Administrative Science Quarterly. He has been a regular CARMA short course instructor for some time. And in fact, I went back into our documents, and Mike, I found out that you were your first presentation with CARMA was in 2008. And so it's just been our honor to have Mike engaged and involved with this in different ways over the years. He's here today in preparation for his webcast lecture that he's giving in a couple of weeks. And so let's get this thing going. So Mike, what got you interested in becoming an academic? And somewhere along the line, you made that transition or became more interested in qualitative methods. So how did that happen?
So probably the first thing to mention, it wasn't through my parents. I'm not from an academic family. When I was growing up, the only professor on TV was the professor on Gilligan's Island. And, I think he made things with coconuts, which was entertaining, but not particularly inspirational. So I think academia wasn't even on my radar until probably when I became a psych major in undergrad, because two things with that. Well, two things happened in undergrad. First, when I declared psychology, there's really nothing you could do with a psych undergrad. So I knew I was going to graduate school. But I also got a chance to do some research through the honors program where I was at school, University of Dayton. And that got me at least a little bit into the kind of the research process. I hadn't thought of it, but actually that research was qualitative. I didn't have any training at the time, but it was mostly interviews and how essentially an ATM department reorganized in a major bank. So it kind of got the itch. Went to graduate school, University of Michigan, and I was the quant guy there. I was the person that people went to with their quantitative methods questions. Did well in my quantitative methods classes. But again, two things kind of happened that switched me towards qualitative. The first was actually somewhat of a negative experience. I was working with a faculty member, and they had a data set that I was interested in. And I came to him and said, hey, I have some hypotheses. Can I test these out in your data set? And he kind of berated me. He said, well, haven't you looked at the data yet? Like, you really should find out what they say first before you come to me with hypotheses. And, I had taken enough statistics class and methods class knowing I don't think that's how we're supposed to be doing things. And I decided maybe this wasn't the best person to work with. Fortunately, at the time, Anat Raffaelli was visiting from Israel at the University of Michigan, and I really loved her qualitative work in emotions. I asked her if I could work with her, though she said she didn't want to do any more emotions work, and I was a little disappointed with that, but at least got to learn qualitative methods. And, the rest, they say, is history.
Yeah. Well, it's a very successful history, and one for which the field of management is better off because of your contributions. But that has occurred over a period of time, and I'm always interested in, the how people learn and grow as they do the things that we do as academics. And so, how do you think that you've changed as a scholar during this time where you've been involved in these different stages of the research process? Do you think differently? Do you write differently? If you were to kind of reflect back on that guy in the mirror back then and say, how have I changed? What
Mhm.
comes to mind?
Yeah, that is a big question. So since we only have a relatively short amount of time, I'll talk about some of the ways that I think I've changed as a scholar. I think probably the first one was back when I started doing qualitative research in the late 90s. There really wasn't a ton of it being done. And I was blessed at University of Michigan to have some amazing mentors. Um, but at some point, I realized if I'm going to teach other people about the method, I need to know more about it. And
Mhm.
so there wasn't really there wasn't a lot of classes at the time. There really wasn't many. There were some books, but there wasn't a ton of stuff, not like what they have now. So over the years, I think one of the things that I kind of surprised me in my career trajectories, I never thought I'd ever become a methodologist. But over time, I felt like to really understand and really teach people how to do qualitative methods, I really needed to learn more about it. So I've done extensive reading and all aspects of the process, from writing questions to coding to writing to publishing. And that's been a really enriching part of my career that I would never have imagined uh, when I started out that many years ago. Oh, and I should mention, as of yesterday, last night, I am no longer an outgoing editor at ASQ. I sent in my last letter.
Decision letter.
Yeah. So
Well, congrats.
11 and a half years, and I think 492 decisions later, I have laid down that particular obligation. So,
Well,
but
that's congratulations. As somebody who has similarly sent a final decision letter, I know how it feels, and I'm very happy for you. And ASQ status sort of speaks for itself, and I'm sure has benefited in so many ways from having you involved. So, congratulations on that.
well, thank you. But yeah, and research wise, I think again, I was really lucky to have mentors that were supportive in graduate school. It always allowed me to kind of do things that I was interested in. I'm very much motivated, I think even more so by problems in the world. And then starting with there and then moving from problems in the world to research questions, to research questions, to research projects. Um, and I think, that just becomes more important, I think, the older I get, is to really do stuff. Like right now, I'm doing work on identity polarization. And, if you look around the world, that's such an important, unfortunately, I tell people it's an unfortunately timely topic that I've been interested in for quite some time.
Yeah, you look sort of ahead of your time, I think we might say. So, well, at the same time that you were engaged in your own journey, so to speak, um, the qualitative research methods community was also coming along. And so, how would you describe, if you kind of try to step back and take a look at that community, how have you seen it grow and evolve
Mhm.
in the time that we're talking about?
I'm going to answer this a little bit more quickly than I would normally, because that's a large part of the talk I'm going to give. Is going to be
Okay, great.
my talks about the evolution of the field. But when you had said I was the inaugural qualitative editor at AMJ, and that was in 2007. And there really wasn't a ton of qualitative editors at the time. I mean, ASQ had some in the past, but it wasn't really something the journals normally had. But if you look at it now, most of our major journals have multiple qualitative editors. So the
Yeah,
field has grown a lot. I think we have re-examined every aspect of the research process, from research, how to do research questions, how to think about quality, how to collect data, how to think about moving from analysis to theorizing. So it's been I'd say super exciting to watch the evolution and growth of the field over time, and really going from there would be an ask the experts at the Academy of Management, qualitative, and that was about it.
yeah,
That's what you
yeah.
got. And now there's tons of stuff you could get at the Academy, and that are filling rooms now. So it's really heartening to see the growth and the thoughtfulness. Is not just growth, the thoughtfulness about how people have thought about the method, how they've advanced the method, and so on. So
Yeah. Well, I have a few years on you, Mike, and so I've been reflecting recently, and as it turns out, in '84, I was at the Academy of Management in Boston, where there was the first meeting of what was to become the Research Methods Division. It was a special interest group. And back in those days, there was a lot of tension and a lot of that I think was driven by fundamental misunderstandings. And so between particularly people on the quantitative side with some misunderstandings, oversimplifications of the qualitative approach. So is that resonate, that experience that and so what are at the core, what are some of those common types of misunderstandings?
Yeah, so I think probably at the core, the difference between a methodology that is really about um, building and elaborating theory is just a different research process than testing theory, especially testing
Mhm.
hypothesis. And because of that, there are a lot of things that I know that drive. I mean, the advantage in some ways to me to be a qualitative researcher is most all of us have taken quantitative classes. So, and usually a lot of them. I mean, every student I come out with have taken a lot of quantitative classes as
Yeah.
well as qualitative classes. But unfortunately, not every quantitative person has the opportunity to take a lot of qualitative research methods classes. Um, so one thing I noticed when having in conversations is that, because we are looking to build theory, we're trying to find samples where the phenomena is going to be visible, like it's going to be, you're going to be able to see it. From a quantitative research perspective, they feel like, well, you're sampling on the outliers. Like, how could you possibly do that? That makes no sense to me. Um, and I think, if you're going down the line, I think the other big misunderstanding is that um, I think people still see kind of the coin of the realm in our field as generalizability.
Mhm.
But you know, as we know, as McGrath has talked about, I think Wyke has talked about, all methods have different strengths. Either they're going to be strong on generalizability,
Mhm.
accuracy, specificity, or realism as the last one. You know, experimental research is phenomenal in accuracy. But if you're phenomenal in accuracy, you're going to essentially be gored by they call it the three-horn dilemma. You're not going to be as generalizable and it's not going to be as realistic. Survey researchers are great with generalizability. That you're studying hundreds of people, easier to generalize. You're doing uh, random sampling, um, but that's not the case with qualitative. I think people don't. Well, then qualitative. What is it good for? Qualitative research really is the strength is on understanding the context, getting to specifics, knowing, being more realistic. And I think to me, it's kind of ironic being in a management, being an organizational researcher. I'm an organizational researcher, not a social psychologist, because I think organizations matter. And
Mhm.
so I think helping, I think right now, some quantitative researchers still don't quite undervalue, I think, the strength of qualitative research, which is the understanding the context, understanding the specificity, what's really going on there, doing research in the field. But I do think, over time, I think that's changed. I
Yeah.
don't think it's nearly as bad, certainly not when I started. Um, and there's certainly some things, there's still some people out there that don't quite get it. Um, but I think, like I said, I think fortunately, through things like Karma, like, that you run, and other, the Academy of Management, there's just more opportunity for people to learn qualitative methods and know what it is. And, quite honestly, know that it's a method. When I started out, I'm not even sure people thought it was a method. They figured, oh,
Yeah.
don't you just talk to people and you kind of throw quotes in a paper and that's it. Um, so I think, again, the field has come a long way, but there's still, I would say there's still some misunderstandings. I think if there's any friction now, I think it's happened because of the replication crisis in
Uh,
quantitative research. And that's led to open science practices. And some people don't understand why you can't use open science practices for qualitative methods.
mhm.
Some you can, like if I have publicly available historical data, no problem sharing that with somebody else. But if I did and went through my IRB and I promised confidentiality and anonymity to somebody that I interview, I can't make that public. And it's hard to really to scrub it like you can a survey to get rid of identifiers, because if you scrub it so much you couldn't identify the person, I'm not sure what would be left.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I do think there's some tension there, but again, I'm hoping that this will all be worked out as well in time.
Yeah. Well, I know, Mike, over the years you've been involved with doctoral students, and we see a lot of doctoral students in our Karma classes, and some that are very passionate and wanting to grow in their qualitative training. are there some tips that you would offer these students, not just go take a karma course or
Mhm,
go read this, but really some tips in terms of how to think about their craft?
mhm.
They want to be a good qualitative researcher. What are the things that they might not be naturally inclined to do that they really need to learn how to do?
One of them is, it may sound obvious, but like read books and articles that are on the methodology. I'm always
Mhm.
surprised at people who cite, even in qualitative methods articles, cite other qualitative research papers. Yes, and you could read a method section and get some understanding, but like read Glaser and Strauss, read Strauss and Corbett if you're interested in grounded theory. Um, I think organizational research method has done an amazing contribution to the field by actually offering. There's so many. I just reviewed a bunch of articles, qualitative articles, and organizational research methods. That's really, really helpful. Um, the other thing I think the best way is, I think, to learn is by mentoring from somebody else. Even
Mhm.
if you can't, even if you don't have the opportunity to be in another school. I've had quantitative researchers like, will engage me in a conversation. I'm interested in doing qualitative research. Where do I start? Um,
Uh-huh.
Sometimes I know people like, I'll sit in on an interview with them or help read a protocol for them, to help them figure things out. But mentoring is really, I think, if you can do it, super helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and I think those two would probably be the fundamental places that I would start.
Yep. Mike, as I mentioned at the beginning, in addition to just enjoying getting caught up with you, a main reason we're chatting is because of your upcoming webcast. So can we close by having you give a preview of what you're going to be talking about?
Absolutely. So the webcast is going to be about kind of, I mean, I have to say it's my take on how the field of qualitative methods have evolved in management research. Starting with, any kind you talk about the evolution of any field, there's going to be you have to make a starting point. So I'm going to kind of start with the ASQ special issue of qualitative methods up to about today, and talk about how have we changed in terms of how we think about major methodologies like grounded theory, ethnography, case studies, but also how do we think more broad, more specifically about specific research practices, like how do you write a research question? How do we think about data analysis? How do we think about coding? Um, I will also talk about how do we think about quality. I think quality and qualitative research, and how that's evolved, I think, is really an interesting thing, especially when you start thinking about interpretive perspectives. How do you think about quality from an interpretive perspective rather than simply a positivist perspective? And the last thing I think I'm hoping we kind of find more speculative, looking at three trends and think about how they may change how qualitative research evolves in the future. And
Mhm.
that's going to be the increasing globalization of qualitative research.
Yeah.
Um, Most people don't speak English, but all of our qualitative research is often published in English. I mean, a lot of it's published in English journals. What do we need to be thinking about with that? I already mentioned, what do we need to be thinking about in terms of, uh, can we have something that's analogous to like open science for qualitative research? And the last one would be AI. How
Yeah.
is AI promising to change? I mean, I think it has the promise to change every aspect of the research process.
Yeah.
So that's a little hint to what I'm hoping to cover. Hopefully, I'll cover most of it.
Yeah, well, we we're so thankful to have a variety of different types of presentations that we offer as part of the webcast program. I think from my point of view, one that's most enjoyable to watch and most impactful is a kind of retrospection and interpretation that you're going to offer, given the critical role that you've played in this. So, for those of you who don't know, our Karma webcast lecture that we're referring to is offered as part of our Karma institutional membership program. We have a special program going through which Academy of Management members have access. You can find out all of the information about what we do at our website. That's Karma, CarmaTTU.com. And that includes more details about Mike's lecture. That is on October the 18th. We have 3 events that day, and Mike's will be the third one starting at 12 Eastern Time, where he'll be sharing his view on qualitative research methods. It was great catching up with you, Mike. I appreciate and congratulations again on being done with ASQ, and appreciate you fitting the opportunity to do another Karma, make another contribution to Karma in your schedule. So thank you very much, and we hope people join us in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure, Larry. I love helping out. I think you and Karma does amazing work. So keep up the good work.
We appreciate it. Take
All right.
care.